Deep Dive Film School makes no claim of ownership of the film footage used in this episode. The film footage is owned entirely by the copyright holders. Also, we're going to spoil the hell out of this movie, so this is your warning. Welcome to Deep Dive Film School!
Oh, this week we're getting into that one scene from Robert Eggers' 2015 film, The Witch.
Let's dive in. All right, everybody, I am Adam Sherlock.
And I'm Adam Pulcher.
And if you like what you see /here, please like and subscribe. You can find us in all the spaces and places that people what?
Find good media.
That is right. We do punishment reviews, we do festivals, we do that one scenes, and this week we're doing that one scene.
Would you say it's a possession scene? At first I was thinking, oh, exorcism. There's no exorcism here.
No, it's like the most, but I mean,
it's a possession.
It's a possession, and I mean they don't do a full blown exorcism. They do pray over him, sure. And something leaves him,
not everyone.
And then not everyone. Yes, very much so. Yeah, this is a, we're really at the last third of the movie when this happens.
It's the beginning of the last third, though. It begins with Caleb's death.
That's right. That's
here.
Right.
And, I remember seeing this movie at Sundance in 2015, and it was a very buzzy movie of that Sundance. I remember everyone was like, that's the movie you need to see. And I saw it with, the director and everything, and it's an insane movie. And especially for a horror movie, it's next level. I think it really sprung people like Ari Aster into fandom because of movies like this.
Yeah,
right?
well, it birthed this subgenre of horror. Really being thought of as being this kind of cult, kind of witchcraft. Very nature-based horror movies. A lot of times
I see that. Okay.
This idea of doing period horror movies,
and the best part of The Witch is that this is a new take on a witch after decades of movies about witches, right?
Yeah.
And so this is before the Salem witch trials. Is I think the 1600s is when this movie takes place. And when I saw this movie at Sundance, I was like, I've never seen a witch portrayed like that ever.
Yeah.
And it makes perfect sense why you would turn that into a horror movie, because take any old monster and have it look and feel like this.
Right. So, to say, but if it was real, kind of
exactly.
An idea. And I think the other thing too is that, what fascinated me from the very first time I saw this, and I remember after you saw it at Sundance being like, dude, Sherlock, right? You gotta see it.
Oh, it's so down your alley.
Completely. And what really blew me away was, weirdly, in the same way that a movie like Hereditary is has the sense of being, a movie that's actually about mental illness, but then it turns out people are actually possessed, right? In the same way.
Both things can be true.
Well, and that's what I'm saying is with The Witch, it really couched the same idea of something like the famous play The Crucible, right? That was about the witch trials, but with the onus being there aren't such thing as witches. So this is about superstition. This is about paranoia. This is about people throwing other people under the fucking bus. And that this movie, it's all of those things are still true. The puritanical ideology, the superstition, the paranoia, is
so
all
sick.
Still there. And there's a witch. So it's all those things. Plus there actually is a witch, because we have Thomason, Anna Taylor-Joy.
This is her first movie.
This is her first movie. And
mine.
I know,
wow.
Right?
What?
Well, and it's funny because she's kind of, as she's gotten older, I mean, she's done a bunch of amazing things, and she's grown into her face, but she still has a very unique, strange looking face.
An alien, but yes.
But way more so when she was a teenager, which she is here, right? Where you're like, oh, you look strikingly strange, right?
Yeah.
Still very pretty.
Not a bad thing.
But just, it's captivating. But I think to say, Thomason's two youngest, the twins,
Mercy.
Yes,
Mercy's the one who's singing the Black Phillip song at the beginning of this scene.
But like, through this
what a
sequence,
great name for her child too. At
Through
least
this-
in this movie,
through this sequence, those two, the
child acting in this whole scene is.
but
I mean, that's what
they're not possessed, right? They're just fuckers.
I don't know. I question that. I wrote that question down.
'Cause
I was going to ask you that later. Like,
me,
are they putting on a show? Are they?
I think they're putting on a show.
I think they are too. But
and they don't know that what
the
they're
movie
saying
makes you question whether or not that's true.
definitely. But they're like they don't know the weight of the jokes they're making or the things
That's
that
the
they're
thing.
saying.
When they forget their prayers, that's like an old wives' tale of witches.
Yeah.
That people can't remember their prayers, and so you're like, are you fucking with her?
Right.
Or because this is a very culminating scene. Not only do we see Caleb possessed, but we also find out, or at least the kids give up Anna Taylor-Joy Thomason character as like, she's a witch too. I've seen it.
Right. And we're like, we've been
That's
with
a
her,
huge point in the movie.
and we've been with her through most of the movie, and we know that that's not true. We know that she's just like the older sister.
Do we know it's true?
Well, what I was going to say is like, if any of you out there are wondering whether or not parenthood is right for you, I would
Watch
say
The Witch.
make yourself a double feature of The Witch and The Babadook and see if you really have the patience for a bunch of shitty kids. Because I think if you don't, on the other end of it, be like, you know what? Nope, it's going to be birth control from here on out. Right?
I mean,
Because
there's a lot of movies, yeah.
but I'd say those are the two that bubble to the surface for me, where I'm just like, oh, I'd throw that kid out of a window, right? Like, because you're just like, I cannot. There's no way.
Well, and you know, I mean, are you talking Caleb here or which
No,
kid?
no. It's the two little ones.
little
We
ones,
forgot
yeah.
our prayers.
Well,
I'm
and they're
like,
singing
"You're
the Black Phillip
full
is
of
a king
shit."
song, basically. At
Well,
the
and they
beginning
want to
of the
do
scene.
get backs at Thomason because she's the one who's making him do chores, right? And so, to me, I don't think they're possessed. I think that they just don't know that what they're saying isn't getting their older sister in trouble. It might get their older sister fucking killed, right? Burned at the stake or whatever. And
Yep.
so that's what makes that scene so frustrating. But that's literally happening in tandem, where Caleb, Caleb's gone missing. About 35 minutes ish into the movie, he goes off
It's the
into the
reveal of the
woods.
witch.
Well, and it is, and to me, which is the
wow.
reason why I wore this shirt, because it is one of the best horror movie homages I've ever seen. Which it's the homage to the scene in The Shining where Jack goes in and it's that famous scene where he sees the naked woman in the tub.
Yep.
And then he's spellbound by her, gets closer and closer, and then they do the whammy where it's like actually she's the old crone.
Yep.
And it's
I mean, I can see the influence of that,
Even
yeah.
the music is close to that in the scene with Caleb and seeing the beautiful woman in the woods. So after that, then he's gone. And just like the baby has been gone in the beginning of this movie, and we go about less than 10 minutes with him gone, and then he shows back up, but he's catatonic. I mean, he's technically breathing, but not doing much else, and so they put him up in the attic, right? Mm-hmm. And he stays for a little bit, for a couple more scenes.
Well, and they're confused by what's happening.
Yes, completely.
They do not understand it. They're like, what's wrong with him? Like, he's ready to sell the farm and go and spend that money on a doctor in the city, like just to make sure Caleb's okay, right?
Which they should have moved away from where they were
a little
at.
too late now.
Yeah.
But they're very religious. I mean, this whole movie, and I think it's important too to talk about the language of a movie like this, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's not quite Shakespearean, right? But it kind of has a little bit of that feel to it.
Yes.
And Old English, basically, right, is what we're talking about.
Which Eggers did so much research to get all that right. I mean, he was also using like natural light
the whole time.
I don't understand when you look at these open shots in the scene we're talking about up in that attic, where there's just that window.
That's all it is.
We're framed with that window in the center and Caleb laying out underneath it. Everyone else is sort of crowded around him. Mm-hmm. We have the roof lines of the ceiling that are pressing down upon them. They have all those dried
Definitely makes you feel trapped.
yeah, they have all those like dried herbs like hanging up in there, but then you go, that's natural light that made it look like that. Like, what the actual hell, man? Like,
Yeah, it's wild.
just brilliant. Now our scene that we're doing starts when the daughter is singing the Black Phillip song outside, and then we hear Caleb has started crying from upstairs, so they all go up there, and
Harvey Scrimshaw is his name.
dude.
Which, what a good name,
Oh,
by
yeah.
the way.
Oh yeah, I mean he should be selling cigars someplace in the 1950s, but
Harvey Scrimshaw.
totally is. Or no, he's like a press agent in like an old like vaudevillian act.
I mean, that's a good letterhead.
Oh
there,
yeah. But I mean, what, this kid's got to be maybe 12.
13 at the time of filming.
Good Lord, there are two different shots in this that are these long one takes of him just doing it. And the first one is him writhing around in pain. He has this, he's saying, she's in me. And then he says,
pinching.
She's pinching. He says,
She's inside him.
it's her, a cat, a crow, a raven, a three-legged dog, a wolf. She desires of my blood. And then he starts chanting, she desires of my blood. The two little kids fall on the ground. They're writhing around also chanting it. And it is one of the most like, what the fuck scenes in this movie.
That's the moment where I question, are the kids being real or not?
Right. And that's true. Now, right before this, I will say, I guess it's right in that moment that they wedge open his mouth and he spits out a whole rotten apple.
Amazing.
Where you're like, where did that come from? Because he wouldn't have been able to talk had that been his mouth the whole time, and yet it was.
Yep.
I remember the first time seeing this. This scene weirdly, even though there's so much other stuff that catches you off guard in this scene caught me so off guard because of its intimacy, I guess. Like it's really selling the idea that there is something that's possessing him.
The mother, Kate Dickey, her performance, same with the dad, Ralph Ineson is his name. Both of them are just outstanding in this entire movie. But, and the scene before this is them kind of arguing about like what they even want to do, right?
Yeah.
Like I was saying earlier, he's ready to sell the farm. Like she loves Jesus more than she loves him.
Yep. Well, and that's the beginning of the movie, is that they're so pious, they get kicked out of the pious town. Like they are such fundamentalists that the town is like, get out of here.
Calm down.
Which is why they have to move. And you're like, at that period of time, like if you're that far out, like that's like fanatical, like that's a problem. And so, yeah, the idea that that's the family that's preyed upon by this actual spirit, this pagan spirit, is really interesting. Now, after the whole writhing on the ground, she desires my blood, they pray around him, and he suddenly...
That actually happens after they pray, but yeah.
Well, no, then they continue to do the, though I walk through the valley, shadow of the valley of death.
Like he almost becomes like happy for a minute. Well, there's a moment of peace for him.
It's even more than peace. Like what I wrote down, and this is the second long take where we're just on this 13-year-old actor, and who's goes
reading Shakespeare, by the way.
He goes to this almost, what I wrote down was almost orgasmic level of exaltation, right? Where he's just laughing and he's rubbing his hands across his neck saying, kiss me with thy mouth, O Lord, like lay unto me. Like, I mean, and it doesn't get totally into it feeling sexual, but it's like uncomfortable levels of joy exaltation, right? Where it's like, pour thy blood over me, pour thy blood over me. And he sits up and his back arches and he puts his hands out and then he dies. And I wrote down those three dramatic shifts from writhing in pain, again, in this one shot, writhing in pain, to full exaltation of joy, to a death mask scene.
Yep.
And I'm like, they already tell you what,
this is like a 4-minute scene.
And they're like, don't direct kids, don't direct dogs or whatever. Like there's some old Hollywood adage about that. And I'm like, This is a child actor.
So
it's insane.
In my research, I found that the Robert Eggers didn't actually direct this scene. It was the dad, Ralph Ineson. He had taught children in the past, and he could see that his direction was not coming across to to Harvey, and he said, "Let me do it."
Really?
And so he got him. He directed this scene and a couple others throughout where
with the kids
because he could relate to them a little more. And this is the dad actor in the movie, so you're just like, what,
dude? That's amazing. Well, and
anyways, something in my research that I found.
And
out,
if you don't know,
I have to bring this.
The Ralph, the father that you're talking about, he's the one who plays the shitty best friend in The Office, like the original British Office.
Oh, with Ricky Gervais.
Yeah, he plays.
You're right.
He plays his best friend. He's the one that, like, works at the other paper. I can't think of the character's name, but he's like, he's like sleeps around like with the women.
Yeah, he's the loud, obnoxious salesman guy. Yeah.
Like, and that was the first time I ever saw him. And then I saw him in this and was like, what the fuck? And then obviously this gave him cachet to do a lot of other sort of period stuff and horror stuff and a lot of other things. And like, I mean, he's in Chernobyl, the miniseries. He's fantastic in that. But that's amazing. I had no idea that he directed the scene.
Anyways, he could just tell when Eggers was trying to give Harvey direction that he's like, you're not getting through to him. Can I take a crack at it? Basically, is what happened. He's like, yeah. And Eggers,
can you imagine that?
Eggers admitted that in an interview and gave him all the credit, which is pretty wild.
You have that on set for that moment because you're like, to sell this. To like either we sell this scene or we cut the whole fucking thing, and the movie's 4 minutes shorter, right? And but you don't get that next level because he also dies in the scene. Like, and who Caleb is before this whole scene is like the most pragmatic member of the family, even more so than Thomason. He's the most like down to earth. He really is like Thomason's friend, like. And
good
so
kid.
When he disappears, like that's when things get so much worse because like he really can relate to everybody in the family, and he helps kind of protect Thomason from some of the stuff that's happening with the parents, and
There's some emotional balance with him.
Yeah, and so like for him to come back and then start spewing all of this over the top religious stuff, it makes it all seem way more real than it did before it. Before it, you're like, yeah, there might be a weird presence in the woods, but that might not be the reason why the kids are acting the way that they are.
Woods. Black Phillip's just sitting outside.
That's the thing, right?
Would thou like to live deliciously?
Yeah, totally.
Amazing. But, amazing scene, amazing movie.
Oh, God.
We could talk about this whole movie. I love these opportunities to really dissect a scene, but also talk about the movie as a whole.
Did you like The Northman?
I did.
I
very much liked it.
I liked it too, but it made me miss this Eggers. Sure. Like, because between this and The Lighthouse, like I knew that he was going to do this big like mythology movie, this like Viking
and he
thing.
did have a hand in Ari Aster, right? Like he helped produce his films.
Again, like I was saying earlier, I think that this whole pagan horror back to its roots style thing was started with this movie. It definitely
really was.
I don't know that Hereditary would have been made if it wasn't for this, let alone things like You'll Never Be Alone or some of the others we've talked about. Like it's because of this movie.
Great.
Yeah, I'd love to do a full review sometime.
Oh,
but
we will.
It's
a genius. It's a genius film. I honestly put it on some of my best horror movies I've seen at least in the past 10 years, 15 years, right? Have to see it if you haven't seen it. This scene is the culmination of the movie. Thank you very much for following along, though. Please like and subscribe, and we'd love to have you follow along with our playlists, all of our festivals, all of our one scenes that we do. We break everything down in a fun, hopefully enjoyable way. So please like and subscribe, and we will see you next week. We're going to continue our Wong Kar Wai Festival with our third installment. I forgot the name of the movie.
I think it's 2046.
2046. All right, let's do it.
Okay. Bye, you guys.